Good morning, friends, and welcome to my Scotland trip recap video. I went to Scotland in the first week of July 2024 with my fiance, and I took a ton of footage while we traveled around there. We landed in Edinburgh and then explored the Scottish Highlands. And so I wanted to share everything that we got up to, a little bit about where we stayed, things that we did, and things like that. I might do a second video that's more Q&A style in case I miss anything, or just to answer any questions that come up. After we were done traveling around Scotland for the week, we did spend a day in London and then a couple of days in Zurich, Switzerland for the Eras tour. And then we spent about 2 weeks in Italy as well. So stay tuned for some videos on Italy. I don't have a ton of footage from London and Zurich because we didn't spend a ton of time there. But otherwise, my name's Kat. I'm so happy that you're here watching this video. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, let's jump into it.
You made it to Edinburgh!
So we landed in Edinburgh airport at about 6:30 in the morning and hopped directly onto the tram to get downtown, and then we went straight to our hostel to check in. So we stayed at the Kick-Ass Grassmarket hostel, and it was actually really nice. Since it was so early, we couldn't actually check in, but they let us drop our bags off and enjoy some coffee in their common area, which had an awesome view of Edinburgh Castle. But since we were allowed to drop our bags off, we went and grabbed some breakfast close by and then went out to explore the medieval downtown of Edinburgh City. We spent 2 full days exploring Edinburgh, and on the morning of our second day we had tickets to see Edinburgh Castle. Definitely make sure you pre-book your tickets in advance because they do sell out. We booked our tickets for July back in April, and it was about £20 per ticket, and I did notice that some time slots were already going for the day that we wanted. On our third day in Scotland, we went to go pick up our rental car at 8 a.m. We rented from a company called Celtic Legends. We picked it up from their Sighthill location and we got a 2A small car for 468 Great British pounds. Our first stop was Lallybroch, which if you know Outlander, you know why. And then we went to Huntingtower Castle, which is a little bit under the radar, but it has one of the oldest painted ceilings in Scotland that Mary Queen of Scots would have seen herself when she stayed here in 1565 during her honeymoon. So that was super cool to see. Our next stop was Culloden Battlefield, where the Battle of Culloden was fought in April 1746. This battle was the last attempt for the Scottish Jacobites to take back the throne from the English, and it's a super important part of Scottish history. There are grave markers at the site of mass burials for the clans. They estimate that roughly 1,500 Jacobites died in battle, and the battle lasted for just under an hour. The blue flags of the battlefield mark where the Jacobites stood, and the red flags represent where the English stood. You can explore the battlefield itself for free, but if you wanted to visit the museum, it does cost money. After Culloden, we skipped Inverness and went straight to Urquhart Castle, which is a castle that is a bunch of ruins on Loch Ness. This rainbow was stunning, and Urquhart Castle itself was really cool to see, and Loch Ness at the same time. After that, we stayed in Invermoriston and spent the night at LNER Studios. The next morning, we hopped back in our car super early and headed for the Isle of Skye.
Welcome to the Isle of Skye!
Okay, little outfit of the day. Rain jacket, a million layers, pants, leggings, bag. We are at the Old Manor store now, and it's in Isle of Skye is essentially one big road trip where you stop at multiple different sites to see different views. If you can't tell, the weather here is absolutely wild. I have never felt wind and rain like I did on the Isle of Skye, but honestly it was still so beautiful and I loved it. I would highly recommend having a car to navigate this place because if you were taking the bus, I would not want to wait outside for the bus to come and pick me up. Plus the bus stops seemed few and far between, and it didn't seem like they stopped at all of the sites that I wanted to go to. We stayed at a guest house on the northern part of the Isle of Skye at a place called Queel Lodge, and before we stopped there we went and got some fish and chips for dinner, and then we went and checked in. The hosts where we were staying were so super kind. When we got there they gave us homemade banana bread and green tea in this sunroom, which had a beautiful view of the bay outside, which was so nice after being pelted by wind and rain all day. And then directly above this room was our room, so we had the same view out into the bay, which was super pretty and I loved it here. The next morning we got up early, layered up, ate breakfast, and headed out for another day of adventure on the Isle of Skye. Our first stop of the day during our second day on the Isle of Skye was the Fairy Glen, and this is a stunning landscape with a bunch of little hills and little miniature kind of things so it looks like fairies live there, and it was stunning. It was only a 5-minute drive from where we were staying, which is part of the reason why I chose to stay in the town of Uig, so that we could get to the Fairy Glen before all of the tour buses arrived and have the place not all to ourselves, but it was a lot less crowded than it would have been had the tour buses been there. The landscape itself was stunning. It was so green and so vast, and it was like a mini hike because there was a part where you could climb up and get a beautiful 360 view of the landscape. "25 minutes away from the Fairy Glen was our next stop, which was the Quiraing. This is a beautiful hike with absolutely incredible views. These are some of my most favorite views that we had while exploring the Scottish Highlands, and I would highly recommend stopping at the Quiraing. 'We only hiked the lower section of the Quiraing and not the entire loop because we had other things on our list that we wanted to see too. We are at the Isle of Skye Museum hunting for a haricot to see. We heard that there are some that live in the pasture right by here, so we're going to see if we can find one. Then we headed for the west side of Skye to see Dunvegan Castle and Neast Point. I didn't realize that Dunvegan Castle was huge though, so we actually ended up skipping it and went straight to Neast Point, which is this beautiful peninsula. And there is a lighthouse that you can walk to, and it's supposed to be really beautiful for sunset, but we were getting quite tired, so we went back and took it easy for the rest of the night. And the next day we had to pack up and head back to Edinburgh to return our rental car and move on to our next adventure. We still had a few stops to make on the way back to Edinburgh, so we wanted to leave ourselves plenty of time to see everything. Our last day with our rental car, and we just made it to the old Sliga Shan Bridge. Statue of Colin Mackenzie over there. So pretty. Someone's camping. We explored the area where the bridge was and then stopped at the supermarket before we left Skye just to grab some snacks and coffee, and we went to the Commando Memorial where the land had been used for a training ground for World War II, and it was a really touching but somber place to visit. We returned our rental car to the airport location and headed back to Edinburgh for the night before we got to the Waverley train station to head onwards from Edinburgh onto our next leg of our trip. We took the 11:30 a.m. train from Edinburgh to King's Cross Station in London, and we arrived at 3:50 p.m. It's a direct train and there was plenty of space for us to store our bags above since we were traveling carry-on only. We had one full day to explore London and see all of our favorite sites before we caught a flight to Zurich, Switzerland to see the Eras Tour. And then we continued down through Italy. Stay tuned for my Italy trip recap video because we stopped in a ton of different places like Venice, Cinque Terre, Florence, Orvieto, Siena, and Rome, and it was an amazing time to spend in Europe. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you'll stick around for more of my videos, and I hope you have an awesome rest of your day. Bye!